Hi, this is Kez. Welcome to another makeup video. Today I'm going to be showing you all of my foundations that I've got. I started off the video series with showing you all of the primers that I have, and I thought we'd move on to the actual foundations next. I'm just going to put on a little bit of primer because one of them I will put on my face, but I'm generally going to show you most of them on my hand. There's a few things that's worth mentioning when you're using foundation. If you don't have a compatible primer, it can leave the skin dry or you can get patches and things like that. It's not always the product, sometimes it's in the application. So just do a little bit of research, see what ingredients are in your product and if they're compatible before you use them. But also your skin affects it. I've got combination skin, which means I get dry patches around this area here, but then I also get slightly greasier bits as well. With that in mind, I'm very pale, so most of my foundations are really pale, but I'm going to show you them all anyway. I am a bit of a hoarder for makeup. Being a self-taught makeup artist, I tend to like to try lots of different products. So I'm going to show you what I have available today. We'll start with these. My local Superdrug were discontinuing these products, and so I snapped some up. This is the Gosh foundation. This one is Exceptional Wear Long Lasting Makeup Anti-Pollution. I got this really cheap because they were getting rid of it. So this is pale, this is porcelain. It is very pale, but it does match my skin quite well. It tends to blend in quite easily and it gives like a blurred finish, so I really like that one. This is their other one, also in porcelain. This is Exceptional Wear, but this isn't the anti-pollution, so I think it's pretty much the same foundation, just with less fancy ingredients in. So I know again that the colour match is going to be right and it's going to be fine on my skin. So just rub that in. It does have a similar effect. I'd say that the anti-pollution one gives a slightly more blurred appearance, which I really like. Then I got this one from TLM. Now this is what they call a colour changing foundation. It goes on white and then it blends to your skin tone. Most of my coverage on my foundations tend to be either medium or light. I tend to not go for heavy foundation, and this one's no exception. It just rubs in really. This is a very light one. I like wearing it, but it is buildable. So if you wanted a slightly more buildable coverage, then you can get one. This doesn't have a shade because it's supposed to match your skin tone. And so you just put it on. It does have an SPF of 15 in it, which is really good. A lot of foundations don't have SPF in. The two prior to that, I'm just having a look if they mention SPF. They don't. Then I got this one from Uoma Beauty, which is an indie brand, an independent brand. It's mainly black owned, but their makeup is very good and they do cater for all skin tones. This is shade White Pearl. Now, when I gave this foundation a go, I was really surprised because it's really lightweight. The skin tone match was brilliant and I really enjoy wearing it. It doesn't set my skin off, it doesn't make it flaky, and it wears well all day. And as a bonus, it smells really nice too. I don't believe there's an SPF in it. It does say it's adjustable coverage, so you can use medium to full. Again, I tend to just go for medium, but that's just how I like my foundation. Then I have this one here. This is from Kiko Milano, which is an Italian brand. This has got an SPF in it of 15, which is quite handy. Now, this is like an airbrush foundation, so it's very light. The shade is Cool Rose 5 on this one. You do have to give it a really good shake, just because it tends to be very liquidy when you apply it, which I'll show you. You can see almost straight away that it's like a liquid, but it does rub in really well. I do find you have to build it up more than other foundations though, because of its watery effect, but the shade is a good match for my skin tone. And the other thing about doing this is if you do have pale skin and you have pink undertones, this will give you a range of makeup you can use. Now I've got this one here. This is an air cushion. It's called a moisture cushion. The brand is Ilho. It's basically a Japanese one. I've seen these air cushion foundations flying around on there quite a lot, and I wanted to try it. It comes like this, and the idea is you put your powder puff in it. I don't have my powder puff, I don't know what I've done with it, but I'm just going to show you on the redness here on my chest. It blends in really well. But the idea is you pop it on with your powder pat and pat it in. It is very light, it does need building up quite a lot, but it's quite a nice product. It's very lightweight to use in summer. Does tend to be a little bit melty though if you don't put on a powder over the top of it. This is the Laura Mercier foundation in shade Cameo, and this is their Flawless Lumiere one. It's not my favourite, to be honest. I'll use it up now because I have it. but I wouldn't buy it again. There's nothing wrong with it as a foundation. I just don't think it suits my skin generally. It's a very runny product when it comes on to the skin. It does blend in quite nicely, but I find that it causes patches on my skin. It just doesn't sit nicely. Again, that could be my skin. I don't know. A lot of people rave about it, so I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with the product. And the colour match is fine. If I hold those two hands up there, you can see the ones I've used the foundation on, the ones I haven't. So it does give a smoother appearance. That brings me on to another one of my favourite products. This is the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 foundation. Now, I had this in the natural and it was a little bit too light for me. So I bought some more. Once that ran out, I just used like a colour mixer to make it a bit lighter. But this time I bought it in porcelain. Now, it is very light. It's a thicker product, which I like because it can be used to conceal as well. I prefer the lighter shade because it sort of matches my base skin tone a bit better. It's slightly thicker, so I'd say it's definitely medium to full coverage, but it does last well all day. And so it's probably one of my favourite foundations, so much so that I have 2 bottles, so I've got one on standby, even though I've got a million other foundations. This one was a nice surprise. This was the PS Flawless Glow Foundation from Primark. This is shade Buttermilk. Now, I bought this on a whim because I had a voucher, so I wanted to give it a try. And it comes with like the doe foot applicator. It's very liquidy. I think it might be a bit of a dupe for one of the Makeup Revolution ones. But this one actually does give a really nice glow and it does sit really well on the skin. I actually really like that foundation and I use it quite a lot. The shade Buttermilk, again, perfect for pale skin. It was quite nice because when I was in there, there was a lady and she was trying to find a shade and she didn't really know what shade she was. So while I was in there, I helped her with a colour match. I mean, while I'm not an expert, I do my own makeup quite a lot, and so I thought it'd be really nice to help her out. This is one of my favourite foundations, but I really don't like the shade. This is the LA Girl Pro Coverage. So it's high definition foundation. It is sort of, I'd say it's probably medium to full coverage, but you can get a full out of it and it does last well, but I really don't like the shade. This is shade Fair, but it oxidizes quite badly. I do mix mine in with a lighter base just to change the shade colour, because if you look at that, it's actually quite dark, and when it goes on, although it doesn't look too bad on the hand where my tan is, when I put it on the inside of my wrist, it tends to look quite dark. I'll just try and compare to show you. See, the colour match isn't great. It's great if you've got a tan, but otherwise it just oxidizes and you look yellow, which is not a good look. So I would buy it again, but not in that shade. This is also a foundation from Primark. This is the PS My Perfect Colour Double Matte Coverage Foundation. This is actually a dupe for the Double Wear that everyone raves about, the Estee Lauder. Now, I've got to say, I absolutely hate Double Wear. It's too dry on my skin. It looks absolutely awful. So I was a bit hesitant when I bought this one, but it does say that it has hyaluronic acid in it. It's an SP15, so it's slightly less drying than the usual Double Wear. I went for shade Nougat or Nougat, whatever you want to call it, and strangely enough, it was quite a good match. And it is hydrating. I can wear this and it gives me full coverage, but I don't have the dry patches that I have with the Double Wear. So to be honest, I'd rather pay £5 for this any day than pay for Double Wear that doesn't sit nice on my skin. For some people, Double Wear is perfect. It just doesn't suit me. This one I got a smaller sample of because I wanted to try it. It's the YSL one, which is the Yves Saint Laurent, and this is the Touche Eclair all-in-one glow foundation. I love me a glowy base. It's my favourite kind of foundation. Now, the colour is slightly dark to what I'd probably go for. Somebody said to me that it would be a good match, but I'm not so sure myself. It doesn't actually have the shade on because it is a sample, but it's not bad. It's just a little bit darker than I would prefer, but it does mix in quite well, so you can blend it. I tend to go a shade lighter than my skin and blend that way, but it does stay really well and gives a really nice glowy skin. But you can see it's just slightly more yellow compared to those ones. It's very slight. Now, this one I actually picked up from TK Maxx, but it is the Anastasia Beverly Hills, and this is shade Porcelain, and it's a stick foundation. I'm not that keen on stick foundations, if I'm completely honest. I find them difficult to blend, but that just might be my limited skills. I don't know. You do have to build them up quite a lot to get them on your skin, but they do give quite a full coverage, which is quite nice. I mean, you can literally blend out imperfections in your skin with this thing. So it is good for that perspective. And I also have these in the darker shades, which I use for contouring. They do one in fawn, which is ideal for pale skin to actually contour with. So while we're on stick foundations, I have this one, which is very similar from number 7 in the shade Calico. Now, Calico is my perfect shade. I've only bought it recently. It is slightly cheaper than the Anastasia one. It's a really creamy texture, which I really like. And I had a voucher, so I thought, well, while I've got a voucher, I'm going to try it. It goes on not quite as thick as the Anastasia one, but it does give more of a, I'd say like a satin finish as opposed to a matte, which I really like. Moving on, we have the XX Revolution foundation. This is in shade FX3. Now, there's a couple of different ones and I can't remember which ones they are, so I apologise, but this is the one with the pinky purple lid is the way I'll describe it, because there's two, which I'll show you. Now, this is quite a thick coverage. The shade's great, but I do find, and it's supposed to be sort of full coverage, which is good, but I do find sometimes some of the foundations I wear, it does tend to be a bit cakey and it leaves patches, but it's a good skin match tone. I think that just comes down to what sort of primer I'm wearing though, because sometimes I can wear it and it looks flawless, other times it looks patchy. The sister to that is this one. Again, FX3 is my shade. I don't know if I think one of them was more matte and one of them wasn't. The difference with them, I'm not sure. This one I tend to have used more of, so I'm thinking maybe this one is probably less drying. I love the shade of this one, and it rubs in really well. Again, you can see it's taking out the lines in my wrist quite easily, so it's a good thick full coverage, and it's cheap, and so it's definitely worth getting if you want a medium to full coverage foundation, but I'd say more full coverage if I'm honest. Doesn't mention an SPF in this one. Whether that means it's not got one, I don't know. Neither of them mention SPF. If you have a foundation that you love and it's got no SPF, just make sure your primer's got SPF in it instead. This one was a real surprise to me. I really like this one. This is the Bounce foundation that was done by Beauty Blender, the people that obviously bought you the beauty blenders. It's a liquid whip long wear foundation, and it does do what it says on the tin. But what I quite like about this one is the innovative design as well. I've gone for shade 1.50, which is very light. Now, there's a little safety catch on here on the bottle, and you pull it over to use it. And then when you push down on the actual product, the foundation comes out of the top and comes into this little bit here, which is really clever. Now, it is designed to be used with a beauty blender, and so this is why it's called Bounce, because the idea is that you pat it onto your skin. I mean, you can rub it in if you want. I sometimes use my brush with it, but I do find that you get a better, more even coverage with a blender. But it's a great foundation. It does last really well. I like that one. You can see it's quite light, because even though I've got a bit of a tan, it's kind of matching my skin tone. This is one of my favourite foundations. This is the Be Perfect Chroma Cover foundation. My shade is C2, which is light. I love Be Perfect products. This is no exception. The only thing that I thought with this one was I would have loved it more in a dewy consistency, and now they have released a dewy one, so I'm really happy about that. Although I do find that this colour match for me is slightly darker. It's great for the summer, but I have to blend it more to get it more to my skin tone. So I think next time I would probably go for the shade that's slightly lighter than that, and I'm going to try it in the dewy one instead, because I think that could be my perfect foundation. I'm always looking for the holy grail of foundations, and one of these days I will find it. You could probably argue that a lot of these are holy grails of foundations, but I think when you are into makeup, whether you're doing it for fun or you're a makeup artist, I mean, my makeup artistry is only on myself. I tend to do makeup looks for fun you know, or if I'm going out or whichever, but it's mainly done on myself. I've done my sister-in-law's for a wedding and things like that, but it is all self-taught. But I think when you've got a passion for makeup in that way, you do tend to want to try everything that exists, which brings me on to this product here. So we've got the Gosh Foundation Drops in shade 02. I love this stuff. It's liquid, but it's really buildable and it's so lightweight. So it literally drips onto the skin. I'm only going to put a bit on because it does drip all down your hand otherwise. So blendable. Gives a real good coverage really quickly. Now this is quite light, but because I prefer it lighter. But look at that. It's gives such a nice even coverage. Different application techniques you can apply for foundation. You can go for the old-fashioned apply it with your fingers, like I'm doing in these swatches. You can apply with a brush, you can apply with a beauty blender, you can apply with a damp beauty blender. All of these will give you different finishes, and it's always best to experiment and see what works best, not only for your skin tone, but with the foundation that you've got. It's always different. So try it. Now, this is one of my favourites. This is by a brand called Face Theory. Now this one is designed for slightly more aged skin, and it's called Luminous Sheer, and it's in shade 2. Now I'm actually going to apply this one onto my face because I'm going to wear it today. So I will show you what it's like. The thing I like about this is it is for slightly older skin. It says UVB SPF 15, and it's also UVA protective as well, which is good for older skin. I'm just going to use a brush and I'm just going to blend it in for a lighter coverage, but it gives kind of a bit of a glowy tone to it. I do prefer a pale base. I'm naturally pale, so I feel go with what I've got, but you can see how evenly that blends in. Now it's not a heavy coverage. For example, I'd need to put more over my wrinkles on my head, but it is buildable. So if you did want a slightly heavier coverage, you can build it up a bit. I've not found a foundation alive that can hide my wrinkles yet, so don't expect miracles. It's just an age thing, unfortunately, but it does kind of make them a bit less noticeable. And then I tend to set it with powder, and then they tend to not completely vanish, but minimize, should we say. When you get past anything past 40, which we won't talk about, it gets harder to hide these things. So that's that one I wanted to show you. Now Face Theory do have a money back guarantee. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just really love the product. I didn't send it back. I've got their eye cream, I've got their foundation. This is the eye cream. I know we're not doing a video on eye cream, but it's the one I use, and since I'm getting ready to go out, I'm going to put it on while we're talking as well. It is one of my favourite, and it does actually reduce the lines that come over here, like smile lines, so I can't fault that. Getting back to the other products though, number 7 foundation, Lift and Illuminate Triple Action SPF 15, Calico again, one of my favourite foundations ever. I had a bottle of this about maybe 6 years ago. Finally used it all up. I'm really happy that they've introduced a pump on the bottle now, because the one I had didn't have a pump, and I wanted every drop of product out of it, and I ended up sticking my brush in there to get everything out. This will make it easier. I do wish they'd do it in a squeezy bottle though, so that I could cut it open and get the rest of the product out, but I literally do scrape the jar clean just because I like it. This is by Urban Decay, and it's Naked Skin One and Done. It does have an SPF 20, and it's called a Hybrid Complexion Perfector. The idea of this is it's got everything in it. So you've got your foundation, you've got your primer, all of it in one. Now the thing, I love Urban Decay foundations, and this is shade light, but the thing I hate about Urban Decay foundations is they oxidize really badly. So it matches my tan great, but after, if once they've been on your skin for a minute, they tend to look really dark against it, and it doesn't always blend well. That's not too bad. This one is more tolerable, but it is still slightly darker than my skin tone. You can see, look, it looks more yellow, and as much as I love it, I tend to think that it gives me a bit of a jaundiced appearance. Now what I tend to do with that is, again, I add in a lightener, just to, because I don't want to waste the product, and it is a good product, but because it oxidizes badly on my skin, I probably won't be rebuying it. This one's quite famous. It's a well-known product. This is called Il Maquillage. You've probably seen it. And the foundation itself is called Woke Up Like This Flawless Base Foundation. I've got two shades. I've got it in shade 10 and shade 35. Both of them do have a slightly pinky tone to them, but the 10 is the more lighter shade, so I'm going to show you that one. It goes on reasonably thick because it is meant for a medium to full coverage, but it stays all day. It doesn't budge, doesn't irritate my skin, and I really like it. I have a lot of favourites. This is another one, Lancome. This is the Tint Idol Ultra 24 Hour. Now this one really does last a 24 hour. It is shade 1, which is the lightest. I did have this before in shade 2. I used the whole bottle eventually. When I went back, I went for shade 1, which is slightly just lighter, because again, as I've said, I like lighter foundations. Love this foundation. It sits so well on the skin. It lasts all day. It really does last 24 hours. Used it for my sister's wedding makeup, sister-in-law, and it lasted forever. So I would definitely recommend that one. It is more pricey. It's a high-end one compared to some others, but I think it's worth the price. This was Dolten. Now, Dolten you can get on QVC. This is more of a powder compact, and it's like a hybrid, so it comes with my Very Mucky sponge because I've been using it. This is shade Light, and it's called a Hydra Balm Serum Infused Foundation. Now, it comes in a swirl, and you get the foundation and the serum in one. It's really lightweight, so if you don't want a lot of gunk on your face, especially in the sun, it's really nice. It blends in really well, gives a really even coverage. What I will say is, though, that I would put setting powder on because it doesn't last as well as some of the other products in heat. We are still going. This is one that I picked up in TK Maxx. This is called Misha, and it's another magic cushion one, so another one of the spongy things. This was shade, I don't even know, 21 it says. It is a Chinese product looking at it, or Japanese, I'm not sure which. There's not really a great deal of product left in it, to be honest, because I've used it to death. It goes on really smoothly. It's very light coverage, but I really like it, and it matches my skin tone well. I do find a lot of the Chinese or Japanese products do match my skin well because I'm so pale, and their skin tone is naturally quite pale as well. It tends to work well. This was another bargain that I got from Superdrug. This is a Gosh Foundation 02 in shade, and this is called Full Coverage. It also says it's ocean waste plastic, whatever that means. I think it means that it's used waste from the ocean to make the bottle, maybe. But it's shade Ivory anyway in 02. Let's put it on the inside of the hand for a bit of a more accurate match. So this is Full Coverage. It is slightly heavier foundation than some of them. I tend to use this when I'm doing makeup looks for costume, just because it covers better and it shows better on camera. But it is a good foundation. Definitely worth applying. Now bear in mind that none of these have been applied with primers. This is just straight onto the skin so that you can see the direct colour. So applying a primer with it may have a slightly different effect. Another Primark one. This is PS Glow Foundation. Now this one is SPF 30. It was £6 and it's in shade Ivory. This is buildable. Now I like this one because it's a liquid, and I do like liquid foundations. They're easy to just dab on and just, as it says on the tin, build up the covering. It's a good colour match. It is maybe slightly more yellow toned, but I tend to, again, just stick a bit of lightning drops into it. I also have this one. This is by Lacura, which is the Audi brand. Now they released these. I don't know whether they're available anymore, so you probably are not likely to get one of these unless anyone's got any hidden in their stocks anywhere. I bought a couple because I really liked it. It's Illusion Touch 2-in-1 foundation and concealer, and I think it's supposed to be a dupe of the Touche Éclat one by YSL. Now it's got a nice glowy foundation in there. As I say, it's shade Cashmere apparently, which goes on really nicely. But the good thing about this one is in the lid you get a matching concealer, which is quite nice. And you can either use it as a concealer, or you can actually use it as a foundation balm if you wanted a thicker coverage as well, which works really well. This is my other LA Girl Pro Coverage one. You'll notice it's white. That's on purpose. I tend to use this when I'm doing fancy dress, Halloween looks, that kind of thing, SFX. It does literally go on white. You can use it in foundations to make them less yellow. It can be a bit patchy, I find, this one, even though it's still the HD one. But as I say, it is purely for costume purposes. I wouldn't usually wear it that white. We are getting near the end now. There is only a few. I've got Collection Illuminating Touch Foundation. Now, this is an old one. I've had this one quite a while. This is shade Porcelain. It's one of the first ones I got that had a more dewy finish to it. I got to admit, I still quite like it. It's not worth trying to get rid of it now because there's not a lot of product left in it. So I will just use it up. But because I've found better ones, I probably wouldn't buy it again. But that's not knocking the foundation. If you do happen to stumble across one and you want to get it and you want something cheap but nice, then I would still recommend it as a good foundation. Another TK Maxx bargain. This is Sheer Radiance with an SPF of 20 in it. It's called Linen. And this was by Eve Lom. Now, I don't know if you can get Eve Lom makeup anymore. I was quite surprised with this one because I'd never tried the brand. I just got it on the off chance and I really like it. It's quite thick at first when you first put it on because it's like a medium coverage, but it has got a really nice shine to it and it rubs in really well and gives a nice glow. If I want a really light shade, I've got this here, which is the Q10 Anti-Age Plus Nivea. Now this is their compact foundation in light. This is literally an air cushion product. And it goes on really lightly. I'm just going to whack a bit of that on top of this that I'm wearing today. You can see how well it blends in. It does give a really nice, natural, smooth coverage. And sometimes, especially when I'm going to work, I just put that on. Like, it does come with a mirror. Mine is broken because I've got that many products that I managed to smash it, but it's still great. Now discontinued, I have this Model's Own one. Now this is a cream to powder foundation and I believe it is shade Natural. It's called Backstage, which means it's quite thick because it's designed to last. But it does what it says. It goes on cream and it sets to powder. I bought this one here, which is the NYX Bear With Me Blur Foundation. Gotta be honest, I don't love it. The foundation itself is great, but I bought it in shade Pale and it's just way too pale for my skin. I was edging between pale and I was edging between the neutral, but I tend to just mix it in with a different foundation to make it a little bit darker. I've got another Model's Own one here. This one does have SPF in it as well. SPF 30. This is their Runway foundation. Now when I got this, it turned out that the applicator was completely broken. But since I got it cheap, and I wasn't likely to get it anywhere else, I just take the lid off and use it. You can always stick a cotton bud in the bottle to get the product out. But it is a really nice foundation. It's a shame it's been discontinued because I really like it. Now going back to NYX products, I don't hate all NYX foundation. This is one of my favourites, the Born to Glow one. This is shade Light, which suits me better. So I'm guessing I should go with light and not pale. Lesson learned there. I've used this one a lot. I use it in a lot of makeup looks. It rubs in light. It gives a nice even glow. Yeah, it's just great. This is another Collection one. This is a Hydra Serum foundation. Another one with hyaluronic acid in. It's also got vitamin E and vitamin B in it. It's supposed to be a lightweight foundation and I've got it in shade Fair. It is lightweight. It's really good. I'd say this is great for everyday use because it's cheap. There's nothing wrong with it, but it just is more of a drugstore brand. So I will use it, but I got it with a voucher, so I probably wouldn't repurchase because I've got so much better ones. The number 7 Protect and Perfect Intense. Now this has got an SPF coverage of 50, and I've got this one because when the sun's quite high, it's good to have a foundation that doesn't make my nose look patchy. This one does a bit, but it's not too bad, so it's tolerable. And the last one I've got here is She Glam, which is the Shine brand. When I first got this, I didn't love it. It's a Skinfluencer full coverage foundation balm in the shade Chantilly. Now, when I originally got it, the thing I hated about it was it looked cakey. I think it's supposed to be a dupe for the KVD Apple one. But what I didn't know was I wasn't using the product right. This product is best used when it's warmed. So when you warm it between your fingers and then you put it on with fingers instead of a brush, it gives such a nice finish to it that I absolutely love it now. So sometimes it isn't the product that's the problem, it's the user, which is me, the application. So it's worth looking up things to do with products that you have if they're not working for you, to try and work out if it's the product or if it's the way it's being applied. Since I've been changing the way that I use it, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favourites now. Well, that's all of them. I hope you've enjoyed seeing all of my foundations. What we're going to move on to next, blushes maybe. I have lots of blushes, so we can go through those next. Yeah, just I have a huge hoard of makeup, so I wanted to sort of show it you all. We've got highlighters, blushes, bronzers, eyeshadows, mascaras, eyeliners, eyelashes, you name it, I've got it. But I hope that's been fun for you to watch, and I hope it's also given you a bit of insight into how to, not only how to use the products, but also how to make the products work for you and what sort of things suit your skin tone. If you've enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.